welcome to Culture Cafe, a weekly survey in the history of literature, film, and music. Thanks for listening. I hope everyone had the holiday weekend they were hoping for. I'd actually planned to stay indoors most of the weekend, but as John Lennon wrote, life is what happens to you when you're busy making other plans. Even as an introvert and self professed weekend hermit, I do get a little stir crazy once in a while, so I managed to take a few excursions outside. Nothing too crazy, of course. I would like to say if you enjoy these weekly history lessons, please click the like button down below. If you want to be notified of any new videos, please subscribe to my channel. Simply put, getting subscribers makes me happy. Before we slide into this week in history, though, I want to tell you about the sponsor for this and other Coffee Before Pants endeavors. The sponsor for today's Coffee Before Pants video is The Book Deal, Madison's premier place to find new and used books. With over 30,000 books in every category, you are sure to find your next book for your TBR list. I go there almost every weekend and never fail to find something to read. That's The Book Deal, 3822 Mineral Point Road in Madison, Wisconsin. They also have online shopping at thebookdeal.com. So, yes, a huge thanks to The Book Deal. So, without further ado, let's delve into the history of literature, film, and music for this week, the week of July 6th. July 6, 1933, Nursery Rhymes short film starring Ted Healy and his Stooges premieres, one of the first film appearances of the Three Stooges. Despite what many believed that the original Three Stooges were as a vaudeville act, Mo Howard, Shemp Howard, yes, they're brothers, and Larry Fine. Shemp left the trio later and was replaced by the younger Howard brother, Jerry, or as many of you know him, Curly. Shemp did return to the Stooges in 1947 after Curly suffered a debilitating stroke. Shemp died in 1955, and vaudeville actor Joe Besser took his place. The last third Stooge was Joe DeRita, known as Curly Joe. Honestly, they were never the same after Shemp and Curly died. July 6, 1942, Anne Frank and her family entered the secret annex above an office building in Amsterdam and remained in hiding for a little more than 2 years. Anne's diary became a monument in literature, and Anne was named one of the Time magazine's most important people in the century, saying with a diary kept in a secret attic, she braved the Nazis and lent a searing voice to the fight for human dignity. July 6, 1964, the Beatles' mockumentary A Hard Day's Night premiered in London at the Pavilion Theatre. Directed by Richard Lester and released amid the height of Beatlemania, the scripted musical comedy portrayed 36 hours in the lives of the Beatles, George, Paul, John, and Ringo. Despite a relatively low budget and short production time, the film was a massive critical and commercial success. Long considered to be one of the most influential musicals of all time, A Hard Day's Night would inspire a host of other projects, while its fast-paced editing style set a new standard in movie production. And of course, a soundtrack was released concurrently with the film, which also served as the Beatles' third album. July 7, 1929, BBC's first disc jockey, Christopher Stone, begins playing records on the air. From the 50s to the late 70s, the DJ was the radio personality that introduced us to new songs and new bands. It all started on AM radio, eventually showing up on FM radio as well. Of course, in the late 70s, there was WKRP in Cincinnati. Dr. Johnny Fear was one of my heroes at the time. Before that were real-life DJs like Alan Freed, Wolfman Jack, and Larry Lou Jack from WLS. The concept of the radio disc jockey has changed drastically. Thanks to automated radio stations, MTV when it was still focused on music, and digitalized music, as well as corporate ownership of the media, the job title disc jockey or DJ has all but disappeared from the radio. July 7, 1930, Sir Arthur Conan Doyle died at the age of 71. After a successful writing career in which he created the beloved character Sherlock Holmes, consulting detective, Doyle was found clutching his chest in his home office. His dying words directed to his wife were, "You are wonderful." Although when you mention Arthur Conan Doyle, of course, the first thing that comes to mind is Sherlock Holmes and Dr. Watson. Doyle was also the creator of Professor George Edward Challenger, The most known novel featuring this character was The Lost World, which describes an expedition to a plateau in South America where prehistoric creatures, including dinosaurs, still survive. This was one of the first adventure stories about an expedition finding a modern day, for its time, location where dinosaurs still exist. Both the novel and the 1925 silent film was an inspiration for the original King Kong, made in 1933. July 7th, 1930, marks the birthday of tenor saxophonist Hank Mobley, born in Eastman, Georgia, but raised in Elizabeth, New Jersey. He was once described by Leonard Feather as the middleweight champion of the tenor saxophone, a metaphor used to describe his tone, which was neither as aggressive as John Coltrane or as mellow as Lester Young. And get this, the guy was self taught. He was a self taught musician. When he was 16, an illness kept him in the house for several months. In response to this, his grandmother bought him a saxophone to help him occupy his time. He tried to enter a music school in Newark, but wasn't accepted since he wasn't a resident. So he taught himself theory and harmony from books that his grandmother bought him, while also teaching himself to play the tenor saxophone. Amazing. Throughout his career, Mobley played with other jazz greats such as Max Roach, Horace Silver, Art Blakey, and Milt Jackson, just to name a few. Hank Mobley died on May 30th, 1986, at the age of 55 from pneumonia as a result of lung cancer. July 8th, 1918, Ernest Hemingway was wounded in battle in Italy. His hospitalization in Milan led to him meeting and falling in love with his nurse, Agnes von Kurowski. Though Kurowski would eventually leave him for another man, Hemingway based the character, Catherine Barclay, from Farewell to Arms, on her. This was during the time when Hemingway drove an ambulance for the Red Cross. His injuries were sustained as a result of an Austrian mortar shell while he was delivering supplies. By the end of 1918, Hemingway received an Italian Medal of Valor for having served in his supporting role with honor. July 9th, 1764, Anne Radcliffe was born in Holborn, London. She was an English novelist who pioneered the Gothic novel. Her fourth and most popular novel, The Mysteries of Udolpho, was published in 1794. The Mysteries of Udolpho tells of Emily St. Hebert, who suffers misadventures that include the death of her mother and father, supernatural terrors in a gloomy castle, and the machinations of Italian brigand Signor Montoni. It is often cited as an archetypal example of the Gothic novel. She is also remembered for The Romance of the Forest in 1791 and The Italian in 1797. Her novels combine suspenseful narratives, exotic historical locations, and apparently supernatural events which turn out to have a rational explanation. July 10th, 1871, Marcel Proust was born in Auteuil, France. Proust's monumental work, À la recherche du temps perdu, In Search of Lost Time, consists of 7 volumes, over 4,000 pages, and more than 2,000 characters. This early 20th century work is his most prominent, both known for its length and its theme of involuntary memory. I've had several people throughout the years tell me that I should read it, maybe not all at once, really. It seems like a fairly daunting task, like trying to read James Joyce's Ulysses. Nevertheless, I have a few incredibly large novels on my to be read list, such as In Search of Lost Time, Tolstoy's War and Peace, Cervantes' Don Quixote, and David Foster Wallace's Infinite Jest. People have their quote unquote summer reading. Those are my winter reading, at least theoretically. July 11th, 1897, blues singer Blind Lemon Jefferson was born in Couchman, Texas. He was an American blues and gospel singer, songwriter, and musician. He was one of the most popular and successful blues singers of the 1920s and has been called the father of Texas blues. He was the author of many songs covered by later musicians, including the classic See That My Grave Is Kept Clean, recorded by Bob Dylan on his self-titled album, his first album. Another of his songs, Matchbox Blues, was recorded more than 30 years later by the Beatles in a rockabilly version credited to Carl Perkins, who did not credit Jefferson on his 1955 recording. Fellow blues artist B.B. King credited Jefferson as one of his biggest musical influences, next to Lonnie Johnson, Louis Jordan, and T-Bone Walker. The Rock and Roll Hall of Fame selected Jefferson's 1927 recording of Matchbox Blues as one of the 500 songs that shaped rock and roll. Jefferson was among the inaugural class of blues musicians inducted into the Blues Hall of Fame in 1980. July 11, 1899 marks the birthday of author E.B. White. Elwyn Brooks White was a leading American essayist, author, humorist, poet, and literary stylist. He wrote books for children, and his most popular titles were Charlotte's Web, Stuart Little, and The Trumpet of the Swan. I never made this connection, oddly enough, but White was also the co-author of the English language style guide, The Elements of Style. American wit Dorothy Parker said regarding the book, "If you have any young friends who aspire to become writers, the second greatest favor you can do them is to present them with copies of Elements of Style. The first greatest, of course, is to shoot them now while they're happy." The Elements of Style was, at one time at least, required reading in any college writing course. July 11, 1960, Harper Lee's masterpiece To Kill a Mockingbird was published by J.B. Lippincott and Company. When first published, Lee was told to only expect to sell about 1,000 copies. Instead, it was featured in Reader's Digest and became an immediate bestseller. To this date, it has never been out of print. Primary themes of To Kill a Mockingbird involve racial injustice and the destruction of innocence. Scholars have noted that Lee also addresses issues of class, courage, compassion, and gender roles in the Deep South. Lessons from the book emphasize tolerance and decry prejudice. Despite its themes, To Kill a Mockingbird has been subject to campaigns for removal from public classrooms. Of course, often challenged for its use of racial epithets. In 2006, however, British librarians ranked the book ahead of the Bible as one of a book that every adult should read before they die. July 12, 1817, Henry David Thoreau was born in Concord, Massachusetts. He was an American naturalist, essayist, poet, and philosopher. A leading transcendentalist, he is best known for his book Walden, a reflection of simple living in natural surroundings, and his essay Civil Disobedience, originally published as Resistance to Civil Government, an argument in favor of citizen disobedience against an unjust state. I bet Thoreau is rolling in his grave right now. Thoreau's books, articles, essays, journals, and poetry amount to more than 20 volumes. Among his lasting contributions are his writings on natural history and philosophy, in which he anticipated the methods and findings of ecology and environmental history, two sources of modern-day environmentalism. His literary style interweaves close observation of nature, personal experience, pointed rhetoric, symbolic meanings, and historical lore, while displaying a poetic sensibility, philosophical austerity, and attention to practical detail. He was also deeply interested in the idea of survival in the face of hostile elements, historical change, and natural decay. At the same time, he advocated abandoning waste and illusion in order to discover life's true essential needs. Thoreau was a lifelong abolitionist, delivering lectures that attacked the fugitive slave law while praising the writings of Wendell Phillips and defending the abolitionist John Brown. Thoreau's philosophy of civil disobedience later influenced the political thoughts and actions of notable figures such as Leo Tolstoy, Mahatma Gandhi, and Martin Luther King. July 12, 1933 marks the birthday of author Donald Westlake. He wrote more than 100 novels and nonfiction books. He specialized in crime fiction, especially comic capers. In 1993, the Mystery Writers of America named Westlake a Grand Master, the highest honor bestowed by the Society. He won 3 Edgar Awards, the 1968 Best Novel Award for God Save the Mark, the 1990 Best Short Story Award for Too Many Crooks, and the 1991 Best Motion Picture Screenplay Award for the film The Grifters, which was based on a novel by Jim Thompson. He's also the author of The Hot Rock and The Hunter under the pseudonym of Richard Stark. By the way, The Hunter was the basis for the 1967 John Boorman film Point Blank, starring Lee Marvin and Angie Dickinson, one of Lee Marvin's best movies. My opinion. My opinion. Just as a side note, you might notice that I mentioned a particular book was adapted to this film or that film, such as Westlake's The Hunter. This is perhaps a misguided attempt at getting people to read the books that many films are based upon. My thought is that if you or have watched a particular movie, and you might say, maybe I should read the book. And well, I love movies, don't get me wrong, but I encourage you to read the book as well. And on that note, I will say you have been watching Culture Cafe, the weekly history of literature, film, and music. And once again, thanks for watching. If you are enjoying this weekly content, please click the like button as well as the subscribe button to be notified of future videos. And I will be back next week with another Culture Cafe. Bye for now.